Modern Horizons 2 has just released and everyone's going nuts for the brand new commander, Chatterfang Squirrel General. This powerful commander perfectly fills out Squirrel Tribal, creating a massive squirrel army as you make tokens of any kind with its triggered ability, while also providing repeatable removal and encouraging a sacrifice sub-theme with its activated ability. I'm definitely hyped for Chatterfang, so let's test it out in an abridged gameplay. I went with a $100 budget for my deck this game, and while it's missing some expensive squirrel staples, this deck is still a powerhouse with little here to criticize. It's loaded with ramp, interaction, card draw, and multiple angles to close out games, including a cheeky squirrel-themed infinite combo. Our opponents for this game are Oaf running Zedru the Great-Hearted, Ankh running Farika God of Affliction, along with the companion Umori the Collector, and Boar running the MDFC Plarg Dean of Chaos and Augusta Dean of Order. Now with the intro out of the way, let's hop into the game. Everyone keeps 7 cards in hand. We have a solid 7 with 2 lands, early ramp, some token generators to start making squirrels with Chatterfang, and a powerful card draw to refill our hand later on. Everyone plays their first lands, and on our turn I suspend Search for Tomorrow, which will ramp us in 2 turns. Second lands are played and Boar casts Iron Mirror, a solid mana dork for Boros. I cast Diligent Farmhand, which is solid early ramp that also plays nice with our sacrifice theme. Oaf starts getting some ramp action as well with Talisman of Conviction. Ankh reveals his deck's theme by casting Enchantress's Presence, a powerful card draw engine for Enchantress decks. Boar also reveals his theme when he casts Reckless Racer. He plans to get maximum usage out of tapping and untapping his creatures with his commander Augusta Dean of Order. He then pokes Ankh with the Mirror. On our turn, Search for Tomorrow comes off suspend, and I cast it to ramp out a swamp. Then I cast Soul Ring, way ahead on mana at this point. I then cast Arasta of the Endless Web, hoping to make some easy tokens off our opponent's instants and sorceries. I poke Ankh with the farmhand since our hand is ill-equipped to deal with enchantments at the moment. Oaf casts Machiko Kondo, looking to deter attacks from coming his way. Ankh casts Wolf Willow Haven, enchanting one of his swamps, ramping and drawing a card, then pays 3 to put Umori the Collector into his hand from the companion zone. Boar casts Augusta Dean of Order and immediately puts her ability to work, hitting Ankh with the Mirror and Racer, rummaging with the Racer, and using Augusta to untap both creatures and then tap the Racer again to rummage once more. Really sweet synergy here. I cast Chatterfang Squirrel General and Ulvenwald Mysteries. Now whenever we make tokens off the Mysteries or Arasta, we'll also make that many squirrel tokens off Chatterfang. Oaf adds an extra layer of protection to his board by casting Spiritual Asylum. It's clear at this point that he's a control deck that's looking to Pillowfort up to be left alone, which only makes me want to attack him more. Then he casts Lightning Greaves, yet another way to give Shroud. Ankh casts Umori the Collector, making all enchantment spells he casts 1 mana cheaper. Then he casts Font of Fertility, drawing a card. Boar is also looking to draw cards and casts a favorite of mine in Boros, Showdown of the Skalds, exiling the top 4 cards of his library to cast until the end of his next turn. He casts Break Through the Ranks from exile, a nice haste and evasion enabler. On our turn, I cast Zulaport Cutthroat, a solid pinger in our sacrifice deck. Then I activate Farmhand, sacrificing it to ramp out a swamp, making a clue and squirrel token and draining everyone for 1. Then I put Chatterfang's Forest Walk to good use by attacking Ankh with him. Oaf continues to Pillowfort it up, casting Ghostly Prison, then casts Chaos Wand. Ankh keeps ramping, casting Dawn's Reflection, enchanting a swamp and drawing a card, then casts Farika, God of Affliction, drawing another card, and then even more ramp and card draw with Kalni Hard Expedition, cracking the font to ramp out another forest. With this much mana and card draw, I'm terrified of Ankh's position, so I'm hoping to draw into an answer soon. Boar casts Angel of Condemnation from exile, putting a +1/+1 counter on Reckless Racer. Then he swings the Racer at us, rummaging twice with Augusta, and we safely block it. Then he casts Blade Historian from exile, putting another counter on the Racer. On end step, I crack our clue and draw a card. On our turn, we have an answer to Ankh with Gaze of Granite. I debate whether or not I should cast it to wipe the board of everything but Pharika, or just chill for another turn and draw 5 cards with Promise of Power. I ultimately end up choosing the card draw, but in hindsight, I definitely should have wiped the board while everyone was tapped, since our opponents have scarier board states than us. In my defense though, drawing cards is really sweet. I then cast Rampant Growth and smack Ankh with Chatterfang. Oaf activates Chaos Wand targeting us, casting our Overrun for no value, which is pretty standard for the wand. On Ankh's turn, he shows us just how foolish our decision not to wipe the board was. He starts popping off with auras, casting Citizen Training on Pharika to give her Trample and draw 2 cards, Warbriar Blessing to kill Chatterfang and draw 2 more cards, Kenra's Transformation to turn the Angel of Condemnation into an Elk and draw 2 more cards, and finally cast Ancestral Mask to turn Pharika into a 34/35 with Trample and draw another card. Ankh can kill us right here if he wants to, but thankfully swings at Boar instead, who can just barely survive by throwing all his creatures under the bus, going down to 21 life and 17 commander damage. That was an absolutely disgusting turn, and definitely a reminder not to let Enchantress do its thing, in case you come across an even stronger Enchantress like the newly printed Sithis. Luckily, Boar has an answer to this nonsense by casting the solid B tier MDFC Ondu Inversion, clearing the board of all non-land permanents. Zulaport Cutthroat drains our opponent for 9, and we make 2 clue tokens in the process. This leaves us with a solid position, especially since we still have Gaze of Granite in our hand for Ankh's inevitable rebuild in the following turns. We recast Chatterfang and also cast Viscera Seer. I'm planning to wipe the board again with Gaze once Ankh redeploys, so I'm not looking to overcommit until then. Oaf casts Empress Galena, a scary repeatable theft effect. Ankh casts Seal of Primordium and then Agent of Erebos. He exiles Oaf's graveyard with Agent's Constellation trigger, then he has a solution to stop Chatterfang smacking him by enchanting it with Vow of Malice, so he's forced to attack elsewhere. Exiling our graveyard as well with Constellation, which I'm actually happy about since it cuts down on potential Pharika activations. Boar casts Mentor of the Meek and recasts Augusta. On end step, I crack a clue to draw a card. On our turn, I reassess our situation. Ankh hasn't redeployed a scary board yet as I had expected, so I have no reason to cast Gaze yet. I decide instead to chill for a bit, smack Oaf with Chatterfang, draw some cards off Harmonize, and cast Acorn Harvest to make 4 Squirrel tokens, which I remind Oaf can be sacrificed to kill his Empress if he tries to steal our commander. Meanwhile, Oaf is clearly here for shenanigans, casting Grip of Chaos, randomizing all targeted spells and abilities. This worries Ankh since his deck is all about targeted auras, so he tries to remove it with Seal of Primordium, only to have it redirected at his Pharika instead. Ankh then casts Colossal Majesty, exiling Boar's graveyard, and Animate Dead, reanimating Umori. He then swings Pharika at us, so I chump block with a Squirrel. Boar casts Knight of the White Orchid, ramping a plains and drawing a card, then casts Soul Sculptor, a weird pseudo-removal spell, and draws another card. At this point, I don't want to deal with Grip of Chaos, so I fire off Gaze of Granite, wiping the board, and flashing back Acorn Harvest to make 2 squirrels. Oaf casts his commander, Zedrud the Great-Hearted. At end step, Ankh exiles a creature with Pharika and makes a snake token. Then he turns it into a huge snake with Shape of the Wittigo and Rancor, smacking us with a 9/7 Trampler, which is a pretty scary beater. Boar casts Battlefield Scavenger and Palladium Mirror. Not wanting to die to a beefed up snake token, I cast Timeless Witness to get back Gaze of Granite, then swing our squirrels at Ankh. Ankh makes a surprise blocking snake with Pharika, which is actually perfect for us since now he doesn't have the mana to activate Pharika again. We cast Malakir Rebirth on the Witness, then wipe the board again with Gaze of Granite. The Witness dies and comes back, and we get back Harmonize. Oaf continues the Pillow Fort plane with Kazul, Tyrant of Cliffs. Ankh's out of creatures and passes. Boar casts Mikaeus the Lunarch, where X equals 7, then gives him haste and vigilance with Slayer's Stronghold, smacking us for 9. We recast Chatterfang and then cast Dray Keeper, making 4 squirrels. Oaf casts Crown of Doom, handing the cursed crown to us to encourage attacks going our way. Ink doesn't make any snakes this time, and instead casts Wormweaver Coil on our Dray Keeper, and immediately sacrifice it to make a 6/6 worm token for 9 mana. Boar recasts Augusta and swings Mikaeus at us, and we chump block with Timeless Witness. Then he casts Frontline Medic. On our turn, we're ready to start closing out the game. I move the crown over to Ink, activate the Keeper to give our squirrels +1/+0 and Menace, then cast Chitter Spitter, and then swing at Ink for lethal. Then we cast Squirrel Nest. Oaf has an answer to us though, with Blasphemous Act, and the board is nuked once again. Then he recasts Zedru. Boar yet again recasts Augusta. On end step we make 2 squirrels, one with Chitter Spitter and one with Squirrel Nest. I recast Chatterfang and Boar suggests a temporary alliance against Oaf by activating the Stronghold on Chatterfang, so I smack Oaf with it. Then I cast Harmonize to draw 3 cards. Oaf casts Thought Lash, an obscure pillow fort card. Boar makes a human token with Castle Ardenvale, gives it haste and vigilance with the Stronghold, and smacks Oaf. On end step, I make 2 squirrels. On our turn, I cast Ogre Slumlord and read the bones to draw 2 cards, then evoke a Foundation Breaker to remove the Thought Lash. Oaf responds by activating Thought Lash to prevent the next 22 damage dealt to him this turn, so he's safe from death this turn. Boar is not safe, however, so I swing at him instead, killing him. Then I cast Dawn Shredder Elk. Oaf isn't out of tricks yet though. He casts Reigns of Power, stealing my creatures for a turn, but I respond by sacrificing all my squirrels to Chatterfang and the Elk to ramp a land. I then get hit for 5, but we're still fine. With Oaf running out of cards and our board state just rebuilding itself, we finish off Oaf and win the game. This game had an insane amount of removal with a whopping 4 board resets. Our opponents eventually ran out of gas to continue, but our steady stream of card draw let us grind everyone out. All of our opponents had really sweet unique decks, which was really cool to see. Our deck did exactly what it wanted to do as well, and we got to see just how effective Chatterfang is at amassing squirrel armies out of nowhere. I didn't even get to showcase the most powerful cards in the deck like Pitiless Plunderer or our Scurry Oak combo, but even without those, the deck was quite impressive. And that's it for this abridged gameplay video. These videos take a lot of work, so if you want to see more of these in the future, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. It really helps out a ton. Thanks for watching, and until next time friends, see ya!